Okay, I am Oleksandr Lytvynenko. I am the director of the National Institute for Strategic Studies, and I am very glad to answer for your questions. About the first question. What do we know about the general health of the population in war zone? Do we have reports of casualties, level of treatment, and the like? I want to say that the level of health of the population in the war zone is quite bad, because the old health care system was striked and now is not very good conditions. According to the official information of Ukrainian side, in Donetsk region we have 12 people who has virus, and one of them died. One of them died. In Lugansk region, there are four these people who are still ill. According with words of so-called official healthcare ministry of Donetsk, there are 26 ill people, and no one of them died. In Lugansk, there are 16 ill people. All information is on 16th of April. But unfortunately, we have two big problem with information. First of all, according with information which Ukraine has, occupied authorities in Donetsk and Lugansk try to hide a real number of people who take coronavirus. And real information about illness, about spreading the virus, is much higher than so-called officials say. The second one is common general information about some quite high level of some high level of people who were infected but don't ill. I am not a health specialist or doctor, and I can't speculate of the level of real infection in Donetsk and Lugansk regions, but with a big level of probability, we can say that real level of infection and illnesses much higher than so-called official, especially on the Russian side. We can say that both sides of the conflict, Russians and Ukrainians, try to introduce some lockdown measures, and in Ukraine, this Ukraine-controlled territory, these measures are much higher than in Donetsk and Lugansk. The second issue which I want to raise. It's information that in Donetsk and Lugansk there is a big difference between the system of bioprotection, military system of bioprotection, and the system of bioprotection of the civil population. The military system is much better than protection for normal, for civil people. The second question: have hostilities subsided, or are the two sides taking advantages of the situation to advance their position on the ground? Are people leaving the front, for instance, volunteer fighters, or is business as usual? First of all, both sides introduce lockdown measures, quarantine measures, and both sides try to limit it to access of people to the military units. And of course, some Ukrainian volunteers go to the Ukrainian military unit, but as we know, now the level of these contacts is smaller than usual. About advantages. Now it's not a time to say real advantages, but I see two main directions for this. First of all, it's a time for introducing the real ceasefire and decreasing the level of hostilities on the basis of the fighting the pandemic. As we know, the Secretary General of the UN supposed to declare pandemic ceasefire, and this issue is discussed in Minsk on the negotiation process between Ukraine and Russia right now. But some official and some activities is still the business of usual level. For example, right now we have an exchange of prisoners. And the second issue, direction for taking advantages, is it's future successes in the fighting virus. The population in both parts of Donetsk and Lugansk regions will be considering the real successes of Ukraine and pro-Russian forces in the issue of fighting the coronavirus, and after this make some conclusions. Who will be more successful will have real advantages. The third issue is an opportunity at the point for cross-border cooperation with the prospect of more enduring effects that will outlast the epidemic. As I know, on Ukrainian side, we discussed some attempts, some measures which will be helpful for population, for Ukrainians who are living under the Russian occupation. First of all, I am saying about sending additional resources to the hospitals in the Ukraine-controlled part of Donetsk and Lugansk regions. I am saying about tests system. I am saying about system of protection. As I'm saying about usual normal remedy, etc. Unfortunately, the level of hostilities and untrust is so high for close cooperation. But I believe that we can and we will use current situation at least for decreasing the level of hostilities and creation good circumstances for further developing of peace building process. Thank you.